autonomy.
Autonomy.
It's the ship's computer, essentially, at this point. I mean, he's basically a computer.
You're saying he's basically dead already.
Yeah. He's a TI-30 stat calculator. I'm like, just turn him off, I guess. Hey, Internets. It's Paul. It's Matt, the Dork Lords. We are here talking about Legion, Season 3, Episode 6. Entitled Chapter 25. I'm waiting for one where it'll just be like, entitled Zippy's Day at the Farm. You're like, oh man, it totally.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that
Chapter
number
25. We are the penultimate, the
Yes.
pre-penultimate episode.
Yes, the penultimate.
And so this episode it doesn't really, advance the plot so much. The plot portion is like 5 minutes at the end.
Yes.
This is more a little aperitif to our final battle, perhaps. I don't know. Anyway.
I think they've defined her changes being quite different, so to make it justified for the audience.
Yes, right. She is not the same person she comes out as when she started.
Yes.
It is a Sid and Oliver and Melanie episode. Sid, as we saw from the end of the last episode, has had her mind erased, essentially. We'll say erased by David to keep her from, interfering, essentially.
Yes.
So what she is now, because she's lost her mind, we learn that the Astral Plane is like a magnet for lost things, whether that be a garden gnome or a radio flyer or a mind.
Yes, a mind.
And so she kind of reverts back to like an infant stage mind because she doesn't know anything apparently. And that's where Oliver on the Astral Plane finds her, and Oliver and Melanie raise her basically to be a moral hero. They give her a whole nother lifespan. It's like Next Generation. I want to say it was called The Inner Light.
Oh, the one where he
Picard
got married and everything.
Yeah, Picard lives an entire other lifespan in about 20 minutes or so, and then wakes up back on the end. Like, oh, I didn't forgot your names.
Yes, it's a classic trope. Because they've done it recently on The Magicians.
Oh, okay.
Where Quentin and I forget the other character's name, but they were lost someplace and they had a whole life together, and then but they always remember it.
Well, and so it is a good point that
in the span of like a couple of minutes or whatever.
It is not simply that she starts over. She actually, we get the idea from the last portion at the end, the last 5 minutes of like what we'd call current time, current place. She obviously remembers her former first life as well. So she's got basically 2 lifetimes that she remembers, and I think that's because Oliver, being such a strong telepath, there's that point where he touches her head and she turns into Sid.
Yes.
I mean, turns into adult Sid.
Yes.
I think maybe that's the moment when she regains the knowledge that she once had. That he basically counteracts the effect of David, I think, in that moment.
Oh.
Perhaps. Yeah? No? That's what I got out of it.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's happened that's sort of metaphorical,
True. I mean, she doesn't, as a kid, her version of a kid in this astral realm, she doesn't seem to remember. She has dreams, but she doesn't remember, and here I was in Summerland, and then I met you guys, and she doesn't remember any of that. But I think once Oliver touches her and she turns into adult Sid, I think she gets it at that moment. Okay. When she sees them, I think she even recognizes them in that moment. It's like, oh, right, I understand now, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, I try not to get too bogged into how it works, because then you can,
why are you here?
Start to think that you understand something.
You're dragging down my theories.
The writers didn't mean to say.
Okay. I love coming up with things the writers didn't mean to say. Okay. That's just that's where you and I have to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Mr. Bunton.
Thankfully, though, you viewers agree with him.
That's right.
There you go.
Yeah, the people who bother to look up an obscure YouTube channel about Legion are probably going to be more slanted towards the let's do crazy theories guy.
Right.
Woo!
Yeah. I'm just here just in case he goes a little too far.
I appreciate your vote, and I will handle the next election. Okay, anyway, but yes. So Yeah, it's a Sid episode.
Yes.
I enjoyed this episode. Obviously it's full of the creativity we've come to expect from Legion. It is a little. I feel like it's a little late in the game to have to reset her in a way. Like she's now become like, all right, I'm the moral champion thanks to this upbringing I had. I think I'd prefer if it had happened earlier in the season, just to give her more time to be that person. As it is, she's going to be like, I'm changed, and the series is over. Like, wait, I don't know. I'd like to just a little more time to see that play out. But that's just me. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't agree.
Okay.
I mean, it's hard for me since I don't know how it's going to end.
Sure, we don't know, right?
So
but I'm just saying, whatever. It's just 2 hours
left.
The
fact that we had a whole episode for her to make that change is actually, you could say, it's indulgent. I can see if you're impatient with that or thinking that you didn't need to take a whole episode at this point.
Right.
If it had been just sort of doled out slowly, although the nature of this event that changed her couldn't have been, I guess it could have in a way, but, it had more impact all being in the same time, in the same episode. So, feels to me the way the story goes is she has to make a change, and so the fact that she wasn't like that propelled David's actions up until now. So if she'd been slowly having that, she couldn't have been so decisively making him feel like, I have to do this. If he was thinking, oh, maybe she's not so, mad at me, or maybe she, then so I can't see another way that it happened. I might feel differently once the series is over.
You're saying, in other words, David needed the counterpoint that was kind of former Sid in order to drive the plot along.
Yep.
And so now it's time to switch, essentially.
Yeah. Now that he's on the course he's going to take, any interaction she's going to have with him after that can't be the same nature that it was.
Gotcha. So just jumping ahead real fast, in the trailer for next week, we see a couple of revealing shots. One is David is almost certainly talking to his dad. Anyway, wherever the fight between Farouk and Professor X takes place. And in fact, I think we see the costume that Farouk is wearing in the comic book. That Farouk is wearing.
Yeah.
So they're looking at the comic for that. But so we see David has jumped to the fight, pre-fight. Like I think there's a line in the trailer where he says, "It's a trap. Yeah. It's a trap." He's Admiral Akbar. And I assume he's talking to his dad in that moment. Like, look, if you walk in there, it's going to be weird. And here's why maybe they tried to fight him together.
It seemed like that. Initially, when I first saw the preview, though, I thought he was realizing that this whole course of action was a trap.
Okay, right. Could be.
So like playing into Farouk's hands.
Or he could be visiting himself. Like, I'm you from the future. It's a trap.
Get in my head.
So there's that thing going on, which looks exciting. But then there's also, we see shots of Sid and the two Carries, and they are back at David's old house. So we assume that if they're there while the fight is going on, that the only person that would be there in the house would be little infant David and the mom.
I'm just realizing it feels like we're done talking about this.
I know. I'm sorry. We just jumped ahead here. We're done, and that's it. We said it didn't have any plot, so there you go. No, we're coming back to it. I promise. I got sidetracked.
You did.
Just by what's
coming. It's like, ooh.
So we have these potentially two different things occurring, where you've got one gang hanging out trying to change things at David's old house, and then David and Professor X trying to change things in a fight with Farouk. Anyway, so there you go. That's what's coming.
Yes.
All right, so now let's go back to what happened. Okay, so Astral Plane. When last we left off with Oliver and Melanie, it was the end of season 2. I think there was like a time jump. It was like, they're talking about how, years ago there was this horrible apocalyptic event. We hid our bodies, and now we just live on the astral plane. And they're kind of talking about, you can tell that they're starting to forget about the events of the past.
I guess so. I feel like the nature of them being in the astral plane, though, is that they forget what's going on.
Yeah.
So they may have felt like there was a time that
Okay.
passed, but when actually maybe it's just them being in the astral plane, not being so sure about where they are,
Okay. All right.
or their previous life or whatever.
Something I did notice, I went back and checked and verified at the end of this episode, at the end of episode 6, when they're like, "Oh, have we done? Have we finished or something?" And then Melanie gets she changes outfits.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yes.
And they're in their kind of 70s gear or whatever.
Right.
Those are the outfits that they're wearing at the end of season 2.
Ah, okay.
So in the astral plane, it's almost like, "Oh, our mission is finished. Now we can move on to this." I don't know, but anyway, the version of them from season 2 is the version of them at the end of this episode.
She did seem to be delighted to be back in that outfit for some reason.
Yeah. I didn't exactly get that because they're not going back to the real world.
Right.
They're like, "Oh, we're staying here, but
Yeah.
our mission is finished." The other thing I went back and watched was there's that really effective monologue that Oliver had back, I think it's season 1. He's in his ice cube and he's talking about basically an overview of the series. Mm-hmm. And he says there's 2 types of stories. There's a type of story about empathy involving a fuzzy little bunny on a journey.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a stories about fear. Don't get too close to the water or you'll drown. And this story is going to be about a fuzzy little bunny that gets too close to the ocean.
Okay.
And so he's basically saying empathy, fear, and stories.
Yeah.
And so I thought that really plays into this episode.
Yeah.
They are the empathy side, and they're telling stories to
Yes.
generate empathy in young
Right.
Sid.
Yes.
And then there's the wolf,
Yes.
who is trying to generate fear.
Yes.
Showing her death. It's like, wow, death can be pretty scary, huh?
Yeah.
Your parents are probably going to die. What about that? That's pretty bad.
Did you tell them about chlamydia?
Yeah. At the Holocaust, you got to grow up. Oh. So, yeah. Also, I would say this is one of the most openly comedic episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, they've always had some comedy in the
I regret previously I said that it didn't feel as if it had comedy, and I think it's just the way it expresses its comedy is different.
Yeah.
So much of the comedy comes out of ridiculous things happening that the main characters take seriously, and so it's not even if perhaps commentary that the characters might be making about their situation so much. The comedy doesn't come from there so much. It's often just like, wow, I have to adapt to this strange situation, and the people who are involved with it take it very seriously, and that's the comedy comes from there.
Well, and there's also a twist to it, right? So like the Jason Mantzoukas is the wolf, does a great job. And he has some very funny lines in there, right?
Yes.
Don't forget chlamydia.
Yeah.
But then it's also twisted. There's a twist to the comedy. So like that scene where he's basically luring in Cynthia.
Yes.
I mean that's pretty dark. Like
sure.
it turns the comedic part into this. It kind of twists it. So anyway.
And a little girl who's drinking, and that's not. You can see it's funny to play fun, but obviously it's talking about something that's pretty serious.
And then you've got, of course, the rap battle is probably one of the most, one of the silliest moments.
Yes.
But it's, again, it's cool. They brought back the music. Music has been an important, and dance have been an integral part of this show.
Sure.
And so I appreciated that they stay on the theme.
Yes.
And you've got Jermaine Clement, so why not?
Why not?
Yeah. So they raise Sid with all of these moral lessons, basically, and she keeps wanting to push things along. Like, well, okay, why can't I go to the city? It's like, you'll learn when you're older. Why not now? And it's like, no, there's an order to things. You have to learn love before you can learn hate. And so, I appreciated that order of things idea. It kind of reminded me, speaking of comedy, of. It's a little different, but when it's a lot different actually. but when you're doing like say improv comedy, you take a class, they'll give you these little training things like, do this exercise.
Yes.
Well, they don't tell you what you're supposed to be learning from the exercise before you do it.
Yeah, they don't.
So, which seems like weird. Like, just tell me what I should learn, and then I'll just know it. But they want you to kind of stumble at it first, and then go, "Oh, I see." In practice, this is how that works, as opposed to just if you told me, I wouldn't get that experiential thing out of it. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar. Anyway, so yeah, so
Hashtag take Matt's improv class.
down at the Y.
Yeah.
To freeze time, you just take a little piece of paper and pull. Okay.
So just don't say no. I'm not gonna
ever. It's did Oliver, Melanie, little Easter egg. It's not even an Easter egg. It's just pretty obvious. But they're the birds, right? Melanie Bird, Oliver Bird, and they call Sid Little Bird. I liked how when he tries to remember the word for city and he calls it ostrich, and he's like, "Oh, big bird." I thought that was interesting that Little Bird is the person he's caring for, and Big Bird, the city, the real world, is kind of the scary thing. So it seemed like there was the opposites there, perhaps. I don't know.
Sure,
anyway,
why not?
We'll throw that in.
Who knows?
Thing they probably didn't mean.
No.
You can.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Where's Oscar in all this? That's what I got.
Yeah, damn it.
Oscar the
He
Grouch.
loves trash.
Anyway.
He would be great at this, right? Scavenging.
He would, yeah.
He'd be picking up the old typewriter.
Also, Jason Mardukas would make a great Oscar.
He would, actually. Good point. Although we know that wolves don't scavenge, they hunt.
Right.
I did like the constant, we've got to move.
Yes.
Our house of paper, he blew down.
Yes, that was quite good.
The wolf blew down our house of paper.
Yes.
But this also reminded me of another previous Oliver moment when in season 2, Oliver, who is currently at that point under the control of Farouk, informs Farouk he's going to kill him. Farouk's like, okay, I'm way more powerful than you, so whatever. He's like, no, I'm going to learn your weakness. Or I know your weakness. It's like, well, what is it? Well, I'm not going to tell you until the moment I strike. And so Farouk asks for a hint, and he says, okay, well, what's 1 + 1? Farouk says 2, and he's like, incorrect. And then just leaves it at that. And I still don't exactly understand what that means. It's not like I've figured this out. But
does it concern long division or multiplication or addition or subtraction?
I will say that they're teaching Sid math in this. They have a whole bit where she's like, math is easy.
Yes.
And so I think maybe indirectly the plot to kill Farouk was in this episode. In other words, Oliver's plan was, I am going to train Sid, or maybe he knew it was Sid all along. Maybe he has the ability to travel to the Astral Plane or something. But I'm going to basically...
Oh, he knew that was going to happen, you're saying?
Yeah, perhaps like this was part of his plan. It's like, Melanie and I are going to work this out so that your death is going to be instigated by us raising up a hero.
Wow, okay.
Maybe.
I don't know.
It's just interesting that they brought Oliver back right before the end of this thing.
Sure.
Are they going to tie up that loose end?
Right.
Because it is a loose end.
Sure.
He specifically stated, I'm going to kill you, and it's this riddle, and you've got a weakness. For them not to kind of pay that off in some way would be a little weird.
Right, yeah, it would be weird. I mean, yeah, we'll see.
So I feel like Farouk's dying.
Okay.
And I think it's probably Sid is going to kill him, and it's going to relate back to somehow Oliver and Melody. Like, see? 1 + 1. Maybe 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 because Sid has lived 2 lives, that she's still one person, but I don't know. Give us your theories.
Yes.
What does 1 + 1 not equal 2 somehow have to do with this episode and Farouk's death?
And I'm disturbed that no one apparently has given a new name for Matt's proclamations of death. I like that, though. Matt's proclamation of death.
Yeah, so my proclamation of death, Farouk. I'll give another proclamation of death.
Ooh.
I don't know exactly, but
Who?
one of the Carries has died.
I knew you were going to say one of the Carries.
One of the Carries has to die. Now, the most obvious one would be the one that's in physical combat. But then maybe that's too obvious. That maybe... Here's the way it would be really sad, actually. We saw a very touching moment at the end of this episode where Carrie with a K is like, look, I got to go help Sid, and I'm completely beaten up. You know how we could solve this? If you took my injuries from me, Carrie with a C, because you just sit around and nerd out on the
Is that what
chair
she was
all
saying?
day. I thought that's what she was saying. What did you get out of it? It was a little weird. I'll say this. I thought that's what she's saying. Then when Carrie with a C agrees, she's like, "Oh, but no, we shouldn't do that."
Yeah,
I'm like,
see,
wait,
that's why
didn't
I
you
was.
just ask him to do that?
I think she was basically saying, "I can't do it because I'm hurt," and I felt like he had the idea, like this is what we should do then, and so she was afraid of doing that to him. Or what I felt like was she hasn't bonded with him that way in a long time, actually. I think she didn't want to do that. I think she just doesn't want to do that anymore.
It's the line where she says, well, you can do what you do sitting down.
Right.
What I got out of that was, hey, even hurt, you could be in a chair. And that's fine.
True, but I just feel like she was just making a contrast between the way that she helps and the way that he helps. Okay. So I don't think she was necessarily saying, why don't you take this? I think she was saying, I only help because I'm physical. What you do is different because you sit down. Not that then you should take the wounds. I think it was just basically saying, I'm not of any use because I can't do what I do sitting down.
Ah, all right. I did not get that reading, but I see where you're coming from. Because if you take it from the standpoint of take my injuries from me, it is a pretty self-sacrificing thing. It's not self-sacrificing anyway. But for Carrie to do that, it's like, it still would affect him, right? I mean, like if your job is I have to compute things, and you're like, ugh. I mean, it doesn't help you, right? It's not like, oh, now I'm perfect for coming up with deductions.
One eye, you can see out of that eye.
Yeah. Oh, my ribs are smashed. I have an hour to live. But anyway, so here the really sad way to do that would be that it's Carrie with a C that passes away eventually from those injuries. Like they keep, because we see in the trailer for the next episode they've got him in a wheelchair, in the astral plane or whatever. But like, yeah, if he like just like I gave you the time to do your stuff and now I just physically can't take what you take, so I just fade away. That'd be
certainly
have
set up that she ends up being far more distressed, or at least visibly far more distressed at the loss of him than he is whenever something goes wrong with her. So dramatically, I feel like they get a lot more payoff if he died, because she's still coming to a point where because he hasn't lived as long as him, because he hasn't existed outside of him as long as him. So, he is mature enough where it's like if she died, then I don't think it would be as impactful dramatically.
I gotcha. Or maybe they've reminded us of this ability, because I think they've done this once before where they absorbed each other's injuries once before.
So.
But maybe they're just kind of reminding us, and so that he will sacrifice himself ultimately when she's really hurt.
Oh,
and he's like, yoink.
We'll see.
Go and live your life.
Interesting. I mean, it would be interesting if they did that, and then it had a demonstrable change on her, like she took qualities of his from that.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Is she cut off, or does she? How does she transform as a person?
Right. I mean, she suddenly became someone who was had his intellect perhaps, or expressed himself in a manner more like him.
Yeah.
Then it'd be like, wow, he really is gone, and she's now has to deal with that. That'd be interesting if they choose to do that.
So what are your death theories out there? We got 2 episodes left. Yeah. There's going to be some major folks
that's right,
heading toward the cutting room floor. Yes. Perhaps David. Although I feel like with this episode, I don't think David dies after seeing this one. Because what we learn is, at the lesson that Sid learns is, she like, we're going to go get Cynthia back. And they try to get Cynthia back because she's been stolen by the big bad wolf. And there's a rap battle, and they are going to get Cynthia. And Cynthia's like, nope, wait, I don't want to be saved. And she goes, and so it's like, look, some people can't be saved, but you have to try.
Right.
And then she's also, there's the comment that Melanie says, it's not us or them, it's us and them.
Yes.
So that, again, told me it was like, don't keep trying to shoot David in the back with a shotgun. Just what she's been doing at the beginning of this season. Maybe you have to try to let him find his way first. And then if he rejects you, so be it. But I don't know. I just feel like in other words, you can both be winners in a way, perhaps you can help David at the same time as helping humanity.
Sure.
Maybe, I don't know, us and them.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I think it does make it less likely that the end of the series will result in David's death. I didn't really feel it was likely anyway. Although, I mean, certainly there's room for an ending which doesn't work for me, and they kill him, and then it's like, well, that's all. We had to kill him. I would expect I would be disappointed by that, but I'm curious to see where they're going. They only got 2 episodes left. I don't feel as if they have too much to wrap up in 2 episodes. But I'm not currently thinking. I mean, there are some loose threads that I think they may end up being still loose.
Certainly, I think you're right.
Because, I think we've expressed our theory about Switch's father.
Right. That perhaps he's a basket head.
Right. So I feel like 2 episodes you're playing it tight.
And we don't see Switch, interestingly, in the trailer for the next episode. I was like, huh.
So it's quite possible that, if we're right, and we may not be right, but if we're right, that, then we learn that the basket head guy is Switch's father. And I feel like that's all that's unexplored, and it's important to what Switch is trying to do. And it would be an interesting, I can't think of what it would be, but an interesting way that the end, David's final resolution of this problem could come into effect. Because I feel like there's still something that needs to come from left field.
Right, and Switch could provide that.
Right.
Right.
So
there's more to that story, and they're going to almost certainly have to tell it.
Yeah, but, I'm not going to, I'm not confident at all that that's what's going to happen.
I got you.
So I feel like they still could come to a satisfying conclusion for the show. I think it's not very likely, and I'll have to see. It's not very likely that they'll kill David in order to make that happen. If they are, then I'm really curious to how they sort of justify it.
I'm now, after this episode, I'm leaning towards Farouk dies, David does not.
Does Sid die? I'm putting them down now. I'm pinning them down.
I don't think so. No. I think one of the Carries and Farouk.
What about
Switch?
No.
I think Switch dies.
Right. No, I
already said
pronounced
that.
her.
I know.
Episodes ago.
Yeah.
No.
Clark.
Not Clark.
Autonomy. It's the ship's computer, essentially, at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, he's basically a computer.
You're saying he's basically dead already.
Yeah. He's a TI-30 stat calculator. I'm like, just turn him off, I guess. You can turn him back later. He's solar powered.
Would you say that Oliver and Melanie are dead?
I don't think they're dead. I think they do exist on the astral plane. It's something that Oliver, obviously, when we first meet him in season 1, he's the one who's off in the ice cube in astral plane. So he has no objection to being there.
Right.
Melanie apparently did have an objection to being there, but seems to have, you know what, if I'm going to be with you, so be it.
You think she had an objection to being there?
Well, she was not in the astral plane with him.
No, but I don't think she could have gone.
Well, I did notice this in this episode when Oliver's like, she says like, oh, well, Sid, when she goes back, she's going to have to make the choice to go back. He's like, why would she ever go back? Yeah. And she's like, well, maybe she's got stuff to do or something unfinished. Yeah. And I thought maybe that's a little bit of Melanie speaking for herself as well. Like, I'd like to be back in the real world. I don't know, but from what I got out of it, that they're staying in the astral plane and
right. Okay.
That's their thing, but they're not dead per se. Their bodies are out there somewhere in a tube and in cryostasis.
Right. So So you think they're okay?
But here's a question.
But potentially though, they could die there.
Yeah. Well, right. There's a power outage in the cryo lab. No, I think they're all right. I think. Oh. In other words, their bodies would die. I assume if their bodies, the reason they're keeping their bodies alive is because if their bodies were to die, then they would cease to be on the astral plane.
Yeah, so they could.
So there'll be some point in the future
so if they were to destroy that facility or deliberately say, okay, you're going to die, then they could die.
I don't think that'll happen.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to go and unplug them from the machine.
See, I'm trying to nail them down now and get every single
Damn
person.
it! Every single person. So, my initial, when I was watching episode 6, and I saw the scene with the bad wolf and Cynthia's like, no, don't kill him. I'm going to go away with him. I got the metaphor being that the bad wolf was Farouk in the metaphor of this, and that Cynthia was kind of the David. I'm a lost soul, and this evil thing that looks for weak, minded people latched onto me and corrupted me, and now I'm making the choice to not be saved. However, you could also flip it and say, oh, well, maybe the bad wolf metaphor is David, and that Cynthia is a stand-in for maybe the choice that Sid would have to make. Like, I guess I'm asking it in terms of what is the lesson that Sid's learning here? Is she learning a lesson of, oh, when the time comes, I can either choose to... I don't think she's going to be with David at this point. There's almost zero chance of that. But anyway, I don't know. What did you get out of it? Did you get a sense that maybe I'm putting, round peg, square hole, but I thought that maybe the big bad wolf was like a stand-in for Farouk, and that Cynthia might be a David. But what did you get out of that?
Right. I mean, I think it's interesting what you're saying about extending the metaphor beyond just the metaphor of growing up. Certainly that's the utility that fairy tales have played. It's just sort of like to help people grow up. So it doesn't have to have a real world application necessarily. Certainly if you're going to raise someone. So it does become a question though of if the whole objective is let's give her a new upbringing. If you're not specifically doing it to make it so that she can make specific decisions, then it does become a question of, okay, are you just trying to help her out because you thought she had a bad childhood and now you want to give her a good one? So it does become a question of if Oliver and Melanie if it's merely just Oliver's like, this is how I was going to get this motherfucker. Well, I'm going to make it so that she helps David because David's the only one who can get Farouk, and fuck that whole Farouk is going to help them kill David crap.
On that point,
kill Farouk in that fucking plan.
There is that line where Melanie says, you're going to save the world, or something like that. Or like when teenage Sid's like, what if I don't want to go back? She's like, you're going to go back because you're going to save the world. So that in itself tells me that Melanie and Oliver are training her for that reason. They're not just like, oh, we'll be nice to this person.
I mean, yes, it would be nice if that's the case. I'm just, it's possible that they just, they did seem to get sort of information along the way where it's like initially they're like, oh, we're helping her, and then like, no, you're here to save the world. It's like, okay, where did you get that message from? And it doesn't help that they're always like in there confused about what's going on.
Right.
So
it's Astral Plane.
So it makes it so it's like, are you fortune tellers? Are you do you have some Bible or some plan that you're working out that you're a part of? Did you receive that or did you make the plan?
I got you.
So all those things are up in the air. So that's why I'm less attached to what the specific what the wolf represents and all that. I'm less thinking that has a specific application in Sid's experience, and merely seeing it just for the utility to the story, wherein she was gonna kill David and now presumably she's not, or at least maybe she's gonna give him a chance to but
make a choice.
But there's actually, we haven't seen any evidence that he does have another choice.
Would he go? In that situation, why would he go with Farouk? It's not really something he would. I think based on all of our experience up till now, that really wouldn't. That analog doesn't hold. In other words, so Cynthia going with the wolf doesn't really hold with David going, you know what, Farouk's been my guy and I'm going to stay with him. Like,
the way that a way I can imagine it, which maybe it's far fetched, is if some way Farouk had wanted this to be the thing all along, where it's like, I'm not going to be able to get David by myself. I need to have everybody help me.
Sure.
And if he is so messed up about his powers that he's hurting the people that are around him, and it seems like he's going to destroy the world, then that'll end up pushing all his friends away from him, and then I can use them against David so that I can kill David. So if this is, that's why I was saying to you, I'm not sure if I said it here, that in the trailer for the next one where David says, "It's a trap," it was making me feel like that's what he was noticing. Like this whole thing of him having to go into the past could be a trap of Farouk's, although I think that's, not highly likely. But, it's just making me wonder about that, that there has to be some, obviously this has to be resolved in some way, so.
That's an interesting point. Now, you've just made me, this is literally off the cuff, and so it's probably crap. But maybe this was like one of the reasons that Farouk jumped into David in the first place was that he saw potentially a chance that he could eventually refight this fight, but under different circumstances.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so it's all been a plan to come back to this moment so he could actually beat Professor X in that fight.
And then get all the powers and then... Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. I like that idea. All right, there you go, everybody. We figured it out.
Draft it off. Okay. Yeah.
Done.
Who knows? Yeah. So I think they're doing a good job, and I think that it'd be interesting to see where they go. I don't know if what we just suggested is going to happen, but I feel like so far so good.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed this episode, and as I say, I wanted the plot to advance a little faster, but this was a reasonable version of an episode from this show. You know what I mean? Like you just let it come at you and enjoy the ride.
Now, how are you going to feel? Do you imagine if there's not the germs of the ultimate plan in this little interlude? That it merely is just, okay, now she's able to do what she needs to do. It's not.
In other words, it doesn't tie back into Oliver's plan.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I just, I guess my interest got piqued when I noticed that Oliver was back. I'm like, because I kind of given up on it. Like, Oliver's gone now. I guess, but like, now.
I think you might have said that we didn't expect to see them. I think.
Yeah. And so it's just interesting that. Well, now there's a chance.
Right.
So we'll just see how this works. But anyway, please feel free to write your theories down. Only 2 episodes left. Get those theories in. And I will happily exchange crazier theories with you. So thanks, everybody. And we'll be back for the actual penultimate episode. I noticed in the trailer, they were like, the last episode.
Yeah.
Before the fight. Come on. Being extra dramatic about it. But anyway. So, we'll be back for that. Bye, everybody.